May the 13th, 1985, is a date that few in Philadelphia will forget. The houses burned, the children died. It was the move confrontation. We're going to be talking about this with Charles Bowser, better known to Philadelphians as Charlie Bowser, the author of Let the Bunker Burn, The Final Battle with Move. And if you wonder why I'm not showing the book, it is because this very modest author forgot to bring the mock-up because we are taping it just prior to the release in the bookstores. I have only the proofs, lots and lots of white paper. And he walked out and did not bring the book. It is a first-rate cover, very attractive, and it is going to be everywhere in the bookstores on May 13th.
That's correct.
You were on the Move Commission. You were appointed to be one of those sitting in judgment of what happened during that awful day.
Yes, well, our responsibility was to investigate the facts and to try to determine who did what and under what circumstances.
Well, you said, quote, "My review of the testimony and other evidence compel me to make the judgment that criminal indictments of Sambor and Richmond were essential to justice," and that was the police chief and fire chief. "That was the truth I wanted my report to reveal. That was the truth I wanted the commission's report to endorse."
Yeah, the commission didn't endorse that. I wrote a concurring opinion. As a matter of fact, I wrote mine before the commission wrote their report because I reviewed the evidence after the commission hearings. You may recall that we had hearings 8 hours a day for a couple of months and on Channel 12. And I was just compelled to write my report, first of all, because I wanted to give my view of what happened, not that it was different from the commission's view that much. And secondly, because I was trying to influence the commission to come to the conclusion that Sambor and Richmond should have been indicted. They did not come to that conclusion. I described the last debate on that issue in the book, in the last chapter of the book. I described that debate, where the real issue was the difference between the moral responsibility of everyone who was involved, from the mayor on down, and the legal culpability of individuals who did specific things. And Neil Welch, who was a former deputy director of the FBI in Philadelphia and a member of the commission, who is a lawyer, and me thought that at the very least, we should recommend that Sambor be removed, not Sambor because he had retired, that Richmond be removed as fire commissioner. But the members of the clergy on the commission took the position that, well, if we recommended it for Richmond, we should recommend that the mayor resign because morally they were equally responsible. Well, that was correct, but there was a difference between moral responsibility and legal culpability. And it was a very, I mean, philosophically, it was a very interesting debate, which Neil Welch and I lost.
Charlie, and I should say for our viewers in the tri-state, is a prominent lawyer and has been for many years in our city. The name of your firm?
Baskin, Flaherty, Elliott, and Menino.
And is also considered a very powerful behind-the-scenes figure in politics in our city. The Philadelphia Inquirer did virtually an entire Sunday supplement on you, and it was most impressive. When I think of that day, it is almost impossible to believe that they let it burn. First of all, that they that there was a bomb, throwing a bomb on the roof, knowing that there was an arsenal there, knowing that the fire was burning, and that they apparently let it burn out of control, affecting 60 houses. 11 people were dead. 5 of the 11 dead were children, innocent children. But that this was allowed to happen.
Well, the ineptness and the misactions that led to that climax were just numerous. And when I go through those in the book, But the critical decision to let the bunker burn, and that's where the title comes from, because the decision was made by Sanborn and Richmond.
The fire chief and the police chief.
To let the bunker burn. And at the time they did that, everyone, every expert who looked at it, and even Richmond admitted himself, they could have easily put the fire out without exposing anyone to danger. They made that decision even though they had represented, at the time they got permission to drop the bomb, and this is a very important point, these two men were supervised by the managing director, Leo Brooks, who was there, and by the mayor, who was in touch by telephone to City Hall, yes. Mm-hmm. And at the time they got permission to drop the bomb, they discussed it with Brooks, and Brooks discussed it with the mayor, and there was some representation that it was not likely that a fire would start. So it was dropped on that basis. Now, once the fire started, as far as I'm concerned, it was clearly insubordinate for them to decide to let it burn without going back and getting permission for that as well, since they had represented that there wouldn't be a fire. And I come to the conclusion that they just had no respect for their superiors, who were Brooks and the mayor.
Charlie, would this have happened in a white neighborhood?
Absolutely not. I mean, my opinion is it would not happen in a white neighborhood. The commission came to the conclusion in its report, at least in a comment to its report, that it wouldn't have happened in a comparable white neighborhood. And what that meant was that the commission believed that it might have happened in a poor white neighborhood, but not a comparable working class white neighborhood.
How could it happen? How could this have been a solution when the problem was there for many years? The MOVE people were throwing decayed meat, raw meat, garbage, feces, into the streets, destroying the placid, peaceful, very attractive neighborhood. That terrible story that you tell on Christmas Eve, how they were chanting terrible things, destroying the peace of that beautiful evening. The neighbors had complained on that occasion, on many, many occasions. There was not a television station, a radio station in the city that was not petitioned by the citizens who lived in those 60 houses, who had lived there for a very long time. It was a nice neighborhood.
Oh, yes.
And they would come, what can you do about MOVE? How can you help us change this situation so that we can live in peace and get rid of these people from our neighborhood? This was years.
Yes, that's true. Well, the critical focus of the book is on the kind of response the government made to that situation.
What was the response?
That the response was ineptness.
Was nothing.
That's right. And the problem that you have is that it could happen again. See, it wasn't just, as far as I'm concerned, the issue wasn't MOVE. It could have been any radical group. And the thing that frightens me is that if there's some other group in some other neighborhood with some other purpose, and the city responds, nothing has changed. We don't have any new laws or new regulations. There is nothing today to legally prevent the making of another bomb and dropping it from a helicopter.
You did not exactly let the mayor, Mayor Good, off the hook. You have said there was ineptitude, there all kinds of...
Well, that really was an issue. What I've tried to do, I've been the mayor's friend for many years.
You're well known as his friend.
And I know him. And I really do believe that this was a contradiction of his whole life. There are two things you have to remember in evaluating the mayor's conduct, and I try to do it objectively. First of all, leaders, when they take action, are likely to make mistakes. Kennedy made a mistake at Bay of Pigs. Reagan made a mistake in Beirut. 249 Marines were killed. Johnson made many mistakes in Vietnam. I mean, leaders make errors, and I think the people understand that. Secondly, you have to evaluate the mayor's conduct, not in terms of an emotional reaction to him, but really in terms of what he knew and what he did in specifics. And I go through that in the book. And yes, it should not have happened. There were several. Novella Williams, who I write about extensively in the book, pleaded with him to not to do it, to call it off, to pull them back, or to try to prevent it. State Senator Hardy Williams advised him to pull the police out.
If you could go back in time, and when you saw what was happening in that neighborhood and the constant aggravation that people living there peacefully had from the MOVE people, who at all hours of the night with their chanting and their disturbance, this is disturbance of the police that would not have been permitted anywhere else, pardon me, of people
Sure.
that would not have been permitted anywhere else. Tell me what you would have done from the beginning.
Well,
had they come to you as a lawyer, these people who lived in the houses that were burned?
well, first of all, that, and I discussed this in my opinion, the basis for action should have been different. There was a model from 1978 which had a much different conclusion. A police officer was killed, but in 1978 the police took the position that the children were hostages, and therefore all of their actions were intended to protect them. So there was in 1978. In 1978,
the children in the house.
The children
we
in
can
the
do
house.
nothing because they would be caught in crossfire
that's
or
exactly
whatever.
right. In 1978, the city obtained an injunction, which was really a better method for maintaining the peace than trying to execute on criminal warrants, because it changes the whole context. You must understand that the basis was so wrong, because the police didn't go there to end the disturbance. I mean, technically, they went there to arrest 4 people. As a matter of fact, if those 4 people had surrendered to the police...
The 4 adults.
If they had surrendered to the police and walked away, under those warrants, the police had no authority to do anything about the problem, except that the other people who remained in the house could have continued the same conduct, because the arrest warrants didn't give them the authority to do anything to the house.
But there could have been warrants. There could have been
Well,
something.
there could have been an injunction.
Injunction.
That's exactly right. There could have been an injunction. There could have been a response to the MOVE complaints. I explain in the book that there was a point in time where the members of MOVE said, look, what we want is someone to review the record of what happened to the members who are in jail, to see if they got a fair trial. We don't believe they had a fair trial. There was a point in time when a response to that might have resolved the whole controversy. It was just a matter of getting some lawyers as volunteers or by pay.
That was all before, of course, the terrible
Sure.
May 13th.
That's
This
right.
went on for a great many years. There is no one in Philadelphia that was not aware that they existed, and they had a unique power. People were afraid.
Well, I think that because they didn't live within the rules, because they didn't conform, people didn't know how to deal with them. I don't think the people who lived on the street were afraid of them, but they wanted to live within the law. The fact of the matter is, and I explain this in some detail in the book, the only reason the city moved when it did, because the people who lived on the street had decided that, okay, then we're going to fight it out with them by guns. And it was the threat of a sort of a civil rebellion on that street that finally got the authorities to move.
Thank you very much for being with us. You're going to want to read this book. It's riveting, and it matters. It matters to all of us. Let the Bunker Burn. It's in your bookstore. Buy it.